Cam Thomas might be the weirdest player in the NBA right now. Not that there's anything like weird about him, just the weirdest story. He's a player that you look at that you've seen, go on a tear. Like last season, he put up like 3 40-point games in a row, but he is seriously the most inconsistent player. He's either giving you fucking 30 efficient points plus maybe 40, or he's 3 for 15, like having the worst game of his career. It's actually insane. And his average is going to look nice, sort of, if he's efficient outside of those horrible games. But it's just really odd because you don't know how that type of player correlates to winning. You really need a guy who's going to give you a consistent effort every night, as opposed to a guy that's going to like light it up one night and stink it up another. It's hard to play winning basketball when your star player is that, inconsistent. Not that Cam Thomas is necessarily the Nets star player, but he did drop 45 the other night. Granted, it was on the Milwaukee Bucks and their atrocious perimeter defense, but I would still say when you're out, in a duel with Giannis in the fourth quarter and you're holding your own, it's not a bad look. I think Cam Thomas is a great basketball player. I really do. And I think that, it's funny that I saw someone say this, that he looks almost like he's high when he's playing basketball. He attempted this shot against the Celtics last week where, he's fully back to the basket on the catch, right? Fully squared up in the wrong direction. Jumps 180s around on his jump, squares up in the air, and nothing but net from it wasn't a 3-pointer, but it was a deep two. Some of the times that he shoots something, it's a ridiculous shot. It makes absolutely no sense to shoot it, and he goes for it anyway. And he makes it a lot of the time. He's a very, very good shot maker. It's hard to say how this is going to work in Brooklyn. I don't know what they're really doing over there. I don't really think that they're going to be a strong contender for anything other than the play-in. But, the East is so hard every year because teams rise and fall and there's a lot of moving pieces. You want to say that the top four is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, and then Cleveland, maybe New York figures it out, maybe Miami gets it together, maybe the Hawks. There's a lot of teams that are really in that fourth spot. It's very odd, though, just where Brooklyn fits in the East. And you really need Cam Thomas to be your star player. McCall is great, but McCall is really a number 2, in my opinion. Now, Cam Thomas is so far from being a 1 at this point, but, you need a good scoring threat for sure. It's just hard that, it feels like once Cam Johnson comes back from injury, Thomas is going to go back to the bench. And I think that's kind of the problem is he's so inconsistent, but so are his minutes. So is his playing time. So is his game, by proxy. It's hard to judge a player who plays basketball the way that he does because we've seen a lot of guys do that. It doesn't always contribute to winning. I'm not going to say he's like James Harden, and it's not really that we've seen this before. We've just seen, some basketball players go through this cycle, in and out, like almost like a Jeremy Lin type of thing, where you're going on this run and everyone is watching it and they just know it's going to end at some point. I don't know if this makes sense. I also don't know if it's a fair comparison, but that's the point, is we don't know yet. We don't really know what Cam Thomas is going to be, and we don't really know how to evaluate him right now as NBA viewers and fans. You want him to be awesome, but it's weird because it just doesn't really feel like the Nets are going to be able to do anything in the playoffs. They didn't last year. Obviously, their seeding was really given to them from when Katie and Kyrie were still on the team, but they still maintained something, and stayed in the playoffs. But then they got swept by Philly, and you're just kind of like, oh, like it wasn't that impressive of a playoff series. Again, you're going against Philly, who has Harden and Embiid, but I don't know. It just doesn't really feel like the Nets are going to be anything other than just mid. And that's unfortunate because Cam Thomas is an absolute delight to watch. I just don't really know how they are going to use this team to win games. It's a very weird roster. I don't know that it gels together super well. I like Nick Claxton. I like Ben Simmons, now that everyone tried to stop overvaluing him. I think now he's almost underrated, but there's still the media that's trying to make it out to be like he's back to what he was, which he's not. But he is a good passer. He's never going to be an aggressive scorer. If you think he's going to flip a switch and become an aggressive scorer at some point in his career, I don't know what to tell you. Doors out on that. But he's still a great defender. He has good size. He can play the point guard. He's not necessarily needing to. He can really play anywhere, honestly, because of his positional versatility. He's a good weapon to have. He's kind of like not Marcus Smart, really, but in the sense of defensive versatility, he has that ability to kind of just be the pocket knife with all the different adjustments there. You can just put him here at the 4 this game to defend that guy. You can really just use him however you need to based on your matchups. I think that is really helpful for a team like Brooklyn. But the problem is, again, got to talk about Cam Thomas. That's kind of what the video is about. I just don't know how he fits into the NBA because I mean, he's not a horrible defender, but he's not exactly like an amazing one. It's just a weird, but he's not a playmaker either. Like he is a shot taker, a shot maker, a shot creator. Like all of his best skills are around shooting the ball, and he's great at it. He makes it look easy a lot of the time, attempting some of the most difficult shots you've ever seen. But again, how does that translate to the playoffs? How does that translate? You know what I mean? It just kind of feels like he's just kind of a fun player, which is totally fine, by the way. Not going to diss him for that. I'm not watching Cam Thomas put up 45 on Milwaukee and being like, wow, he's going to lead the Nets to a championship. No, he's not. We have to set realistic expectations. It's just like he's so electric and he's very fluid and he gets to his spots. And even if he doesn't get to the spot he wants, he's going to make something happen. I just really don't know what his ceiling is as a basketball player. It feels like this is what he's always been. This is how they're going to use him. And this is how, it's going to be. He's going to be a great scorer. He's not going to be super efficient, but, with a team like Brooklyn who needs, shot takers and needs a scorer, he can definitely be that number one scorer for Brooklyn if Mikal doesn't want to be that. And they want Mikal more to be a defensive guy. Maybe those can be your 1 and 2 options on offense, hypothetically speaking. I just don't know that actually translates to playoff basketball. But I will say this, Brooklyn is screwed either way. And at the end of the day, they're really rebuilding. So Cam Thomas is around for the long haul. Mikal, maybe not as long of a haul. That's the only problem, I would say. But again, Cam Thomas specifically, like focusing on him, coming out of nowhere, just dropping 40 balls last season, and then getting pushed out of the rotation again. It's just weird. I'm glad that they're actually playing him. I'm glad that he's able to produce in the role they're giving him. But I don't think we're ever going to see him be a consistent player until they give him consistent minutes and they give him a consistent role. I just feel like when I watch the Nets, they're a great team and they definitely can space the floor super well. They competed with Boston. They gave them a run for their money. Boston did end up winning the other night, but at the end of the day, Cam Thomas played a good game. Mikal is a solid player. I don't know what the Nets' future looks like, but I will say this. They're going to do a lot better if they give Cam Thomas minutes and they give him a actual definitive role on the team.